Ooh. Thanks for coming back, guys. I got something new to show you in this box this week. Let's crack it open and see what's inside. WE-130. All that packaging, this is what you get. You've got the base here that has a key that's going to fit up in here, and it's got an Allen wrench. Those store in the base right there. It's got the tower, it's got some goodies right here, I'm not sure what those do yet, and then your cam right here with its screw. These are the knives that I will be sharpening this evening. I'm going to sharpen all of these knives. All of them have different blade profiles, different bevel angles, different styles, different shapes, and I'm going to run all these knives through the sharpener to get a good feel of it. You know, I've got everything from the Microtech Halo 5 right here that's super sweet, which is a Tonto. I've got the Microtech double action out the front, which is a dagger blade. You know, I'm really interested to see if I can grip onto this fine ridge right here and get a consistent profile on both sides. Got the Microtech dock right here. This is a super sweet blade. It's a hollow ground blade, so we're gonna put that to it. We've got the Spyderco. I'm not sure the model. This is a super wicked model right here. What I'm interested to see on this one is they did a cool compound grind on the tip where they left it thick and then ground a secondary bevel to keep the tip really strong. This is a camping knife, super cool. I've got the Shiragorev. This guy right here is my favorite carry knife right here. This thing opens like butter. I believe they call this the F2. I'm not real positive. This was a super high-end knife. Excellent blade. Love it. I've got this small little Boker Damascus. I carried this thing for years. What an incredible little knife for like 30 or 40 bucks. I loved this knife. If I could duplicate this as a folder, I would make this knife over and over and over again. It's perfect size. Great little knife. We're going to go ahead and get it sharpened up. Then I move over to my favorite fixed blades. I've got my CRKT fighting knife right here with the VEF serrations. I've got the Gerber Lmf Infantry knife. This is probably my go-to knife if I was going to take a knife for backpacking and survival. This thing is absolutely incredible. Notice this little contoured pocket right here. That's there so that you can take this thing and tie it to a stick and use it as a spear, and this will kind of lay in the middle, and that's what these holes are for here also. Incredible knife. The sheath on this knife is really high tech. Also, it's even got an integral sharpener in it. This is my Gerber silver Trident knife. Super neat knife. Both of these Gerbers are made in America, by the way, so really cool. High-end, top-end stuff right here. I like these Gerber knives. A lot of the other Gerber knives I wouldn't even care to own, but these are super wicked. And then I got the Cold Steel OSS. This is the scariest fighting knife that I own. It's sharp all the way around, and honestly, I probably don't even need to sharpen this thing. I would say this thing's pretty razor sharp already, but hey, I think on the wicked edge, I can improve the edge on this. WE-130 is this model right here with these independent jaws and the cam. It gives you a larger variety of sharpening angles. I will say this pretty much can't be used as it sits. It has to be mounted to a base plate. I wouldn't use this like this. I fear that cranking this down, I might bend it over and bend one of these rods. The whole thing's kind of fidgety. I wouldn't want to be working this with this flopping around like that. Definitely going to mount this to a plate. Here's what I have for a base. I think it's going to be awesome. It's a big piece of cherry. It's just the right size. It's nice and solid. Gives me a good working platform all the way around. But we're going to customize this base. just like any project where I'm getting ready to dye it, in my heart I'm like, oh no, please don't ruin this project. I really hope it doesn't. But you know, you can never get anything exceptionally cool if you never try something new. So here we go. I'm gonna dip this in here. This should be pretty shocking when I first go to put it on. Mixed up a lot of dye here. Yeah, this on the real yellow first. Got it all sanded down to 500. Now I'm going to pour some more oil on it and put another coat on. This is the entire shop after this project. Oh my goodness. All right, so we've gone ahead and finished up this base. It's really awesome. You can see the shine on it right there. It came out really, really nice. You'll get some close-ups of this. So we got the Microtech Halo 2 in here. You know what? We're just gonna run right through the grits. We're gonna go 100, 200, right up the grits. $100. Here we go. Ooh, that's a gritty grit. Here's where we're at. I've taken this knife up to 1,000 grit. Now, on the Lansky, I was very used to sharpening one side to get a burr, and then I'd flip it around and sharpen the other side to fold that burr over, and then I'd work both edges consistently to keep it nice and straight, and that's how I sharpen knives. Now, I see a lot of people use this sharpener right here, working these just like this. I could see merit in that movement right there, but that's gonna be a hard one to get used to. That's not natural to me yet. So right now, I'm doing what's natural to me, and that is to go right back to my tried and true, work one side and then work the other. Right off the bat, I decided that I needed to put feet on this because I didn't like how it moved around. But once I started getting into it, you know, I could sharpen and get this side right where I want it, and then flip it, pick up this other one, you know, and actually flipping the base keeps this real nice and true and straight and rigid, and then I can just flip it around real easily, grab the other stone. I feel like I have more control with my right hand, and I can come in here. This goes really fast. Let's see here. Let's do my favorite carry knife next. This guy right here. We'll bring her in. Yeah, once you get that initial profile set, the rest of the grits just fly by. You just gotta work each grit pattern up. That's it. Let's pull it off. Slide that forward. Wipe off our blade. Give it a quick strop here. And we're gonna give it the paper test. Will it cut? Got a cut, and no problem shaving hair. That's my everyday carry, and it is back in function. Oh yeah, Shiragorev F2. All right, let's move on. So that's 2 down. 2 down. Another day, another show. Let's do this cute little knife right here, this little Damascus Hunter, this little Damascus Gentleman's knife. You know, you want to go like this. Well, I just slipped off and came back. Ouch! Shoved the tip right into my thumb. So, yeah, mistake, definitely mistake number 1. Oops. Bummer. Alright, Next up is my Microtech out the front, double action nonetheless. Doesn't get any cooler than that, guys. So let's go ahead and figure out how I want to mount this and what angle that I can sharpen it at, and see if I can't match the factory angle on this bad boy. I don't think I'm going to be able to. Let's see. I think I'm just going to have to eyeball this. I won't even be able to use the guide that they gave me, because the guide is in between, so the clamp wouldn't clamp on the flat part of the knife. We need it to clamp right on that flat part. There we go, right there. Let's see if we can't match the bevel here. Everything just came out perfect. There. Now I've got the tension all the way down. I don't think I can close that. I feel like if I push that down, it's gonna break. Even though I can fit the knife in there, oh, it closed, but I'm surprised. I thought it was gonna break. Both sides. That means the blade went magnetic. Now this blade was not magnetic before I started sharpening it. Got the CRKT. Let's go ahead and set this one fairly deep. Now I can't sharpen any of this serrated portion, so I'm only going to sharpen the front section. So I'm going to kind of steady it up on that front section, lock that down. Ooh-wee! That one, this knife I was super scared to sharpen until I got this sharpening system, and that worked amazingly well. Gerber Lmf Infantry knife. Let's get this with same deal. It's got a serrated section, so I'm only going to be sharpening the forward portion of the blade. I'm going to give you a super honest review of what I think. I've already found some flaws. I've already had some hiccups. At the end of the video, I'm going to tell you all about it. But I'm going to go ahead and sharpen all of these knives, all these different types of knives, to really get a feel for it, and then I'll give you my honest opinion. Gerber Silver Trident. Now this one I'm interested in because it's got a bevel here and a bevel here, and no real flat spot to clamp it except for all the way back here, which I think it is too thick to clamp there, and it is too thick to clamp anywhere. So the Silver Trident is a no-go. No-go on the Silver Trident. Awesome knife. This sharpener won't do it. Moving on. Cold Steel Oss. This is another knife that has two hollow grinds. One on the top, one on the bottom. There's no flat on this knife. And I'm interested to see if it will grab onto the center ridge of this, and if it does, whether this knife will rock back and forth. Okay, so automatically if you stick the knife all the way to the bottom, there's a little spring in the bottom and the blade catches the spring. So that's probably not good. Aha. Nope, no go. No matter what I do, when I try to clamp it, it cocks the knife. One way or the other, it will not clamp squarely on that ridge on this knife. So, cold steel OSS, no go. Not gonna sharpen in this wicked edge knife sharpener. Spyderco. This is a really neat camp knife. I see no problems sharpening this knife here. So just a quick recap of what I actually sharpened today. I had a Boker Mini Damascus knife right here. I had some troubles with this one. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. I had the Spyderco, the Tonto out the front switchblade. Now this knife, this sharpener actually was amazing for this knife. And I have a couple different reasons why this sharpener worked so well with this style knife. This knife right here, my double action out the front Microtech, this sharpener worked amazing for this knife. I'll also talk about that. This Microtech dock right here, this worked great. It sharpened perfectly just like I would have expected it to. It did scratch the blade just a little bit on the clamps, but that's due to the machine having metal dust in it, and I figured that out after I scratched that. This knife right here, I had complications and I almost ruined it. I'll talk to you about that one here in just a minute. This knife right here, I have never sharpened until I got this knife sharpening system. And I'll tell you why. And this knife sharpened up great on this system. So that was fantastic. This is my favorite knife, the Gerber Lmf Infantry knife. But this is the thickest knife that sharpener will ever take right here. And I'll measure the thickness of that because I guarantee you, you're not going to get a knife any bigger than this in that knife sharpener. The Gerber Silver Trident, this was too thick. It would not fit in the sharpener. No way, no how, would not fit. I'll have to sharpen this one differently. Super cool knife. No go with the Wicked Edge system. The Cold Steel OSS, this was also a no-go. There are 2 hollow grinds on this knife, and the only flat spot is a ridge that runs down the center, and no matter how I clamped on this, the knife would cock one way or the other, and I couldn't get a good clamp on it. So this is also a no-go, which is a shame because this one has such a fine edge on it all the way around that's consistent. I really wanted to be able to sharpen it on a system like this rather than freehanding it. But you know what? I'll have to freehand it. This one was a no-go. Alright guys, so I had quite a few problems with the knife sharpener. And I had to work through some problems, and I had a pretty steep learning curve, to tell you the truth. I've watched a lot of videos on this, and everybody tells you could just pick one of these things up and you're an instantaneous, perfect professional knife sharpener. And I have news for you. That is not the case. I make knives. I make a lot of knives, and this knife sharpener was not easy for me to just pick up and have a perfect result right off the bat. I could see if you've never sharpened a knife before, this is easier than using stones without a guide, but there is a learning curve with this. I jumped right into sharpening some fairly high-end knives right here because I do sharpen knives, and I felt like I had the skill set to jump right into this and sharpen these knives. However, my Shiragorev, I almost ruined this knife, and it was my fault. This is a tall flat grind. When I put it into the jaws here and clamped it down, everything looked great. I lined up this side, I got my angle right, and I ground my bevel, and what I realized was one side, it was canted slightly, so one bevel is taller than the other. So I ended up actually removing a slight amount of material and reducing the entire width of the blade so that I could creep the other bevel on the other side to the same height moving the edge around to get it right. That took a minute to get right, and I messed this knife up. That could have been an extremely expensive mistake. So, I mean, that's my fault that I didn't start with an inexpensive knife. But, hey, you know, you learn from your mistakes, right? This little pocket knife right here made me aware of a potential problem with this sharpener. When you're dealing with knives that are real slim in nature, the blades are small. What happens is when you go to clamp it down in this, no matter how high you clamp it, in order to get the edge angle that you need on these pocket knives, say between 17 and 25, you can't get that because these jaws are in the way of the stone actually reaching the cutting edge. So I did some research. They have a high angle attachment or steep angle attachment. It's another piece I'm going to have to buy to extend the angle to get the knife higher so that the stones will clear the jig. This is an everyday carry. I didn't mind putting a little steeper angle on it, so I just changed the bevel contour on this knife so that I could sharpen on this system without having to buy any extra parts. That's on little small pocket knives. So just take that into consideration. If you sharpen mostly little tiny pocket knives like this is probably not the system for you. I think there are better options than this system. Now that I've used this and sharpened a broad variety of knives, I think that this system right here is probably best suited for sharpening kitchen knives. Okay, kitchen knives are what this thing is made for. This out the front Microtech right here, this bad boy right here, I'm sorry, I can't stop shooting or firing this thing. It is so cool. This was awesome in this knife sharpener, and the reason why, it's a Tonto with 2 different angle grinds on it. So I could lock it in place, find this bevel, grind it, get it sharp, and then find this bevel angle and get it sharp separately. And just make sure that they meet up in the middle right here at the confluence of the 2 edges right there. So this is one of the knives I was timid to sharpen without this system. Even on my Lansky, which is very similar to this, I felt like I had more control with this system. Probably due to the fact that these stones are wider, so when I got into this section here, I felt like I was really getting a flat grind and I wasn't rotating the stone like I would on my Lansky. The Lansky had much thinner stones, and it was easy to roll and catch an edge of the stone and gouge the edge of the blade. So I was finally comfortable to sharpen this high-end single action switchblade, and also I sharpened my double action switchblade here, and I was worried about this one because it is a dagger grind, but it had a tiny flat spot in the center which was just enough for me to index the jaws to get this flat so it didn't try to tilt in the jaws. And I was able to get a consistent bevel on both sides. And this one, you know, I said these smaller knives were hard. This one wasn't as hard because it already had a very steep bevel. It made it easier for the stones to clear the jig. And that was really nice to get this guy sharpened up. I didn't want to go and sharpen this myself and drag those secondary bevels up onto the blade. Microtech does such a good job grinding these, and they're just beautiful. I didn't want to mar it up. So I've waited to sharpen that until I got something like this. Same with this Microtech dock right here. I had a flat. It did mar the surface of this flat. This flat has a really nice satin finish on it, and I had some metal dust from previous sharpenings already in the jaws, and when I slid it down in there and clamped it down, it did mar the blade surface just slightly. And this is really getting to about the thickest knife that you could sharpen in this system. So that was a lesson learned. I'll be able to get that out with a little bit of steel wool. I'm not too worried about that. Like I said, I almost ruined my Shiragorev right here. That was a super bummer, but I was able to fix it. You can't really tell. This is an everyday carry. I've carried this knife for 2 years now, so I'm not too upset about that. I mean, this knife looks really good for 2 years old. And then we have the Gerber Lmf Infantry. Nothing special here. This is a huge beefy blade, but it was super nice to get, you know, consistent bevels on there. I've used this thing for batoning, thrown it at trees, I've tied it to sticks. I've done all kinds of stuff with this knife. It's an amazing knife. It goes all the way through to the butt. It's a one-piece construction with a molded handle over it. You know, before I was making knives, this was the only knife that I ever carried, ever. Now I carry my own knives. These knives all sit in a drawer, except for these everyday carry knives. I do carry these pretty regularly. Whenever I get dressed up and go out with my wife, I like to carry the out the front switchblade. That's a nice gentleman's knife. And my everyday carry that I carry around for work and to open boxes is my Shiragorev, or this little tiny knife right here. The silver Trident, nope, didn't get it sharpened. The cold steel OSS, didn't get it sharpened. So that means I have at least 5 or 6 more knives like these in my collection that I won't be able to sharpen on this. No big deal. And I've probably got another 20 knives like all these right here that I could sharpen. I tried to grab a selection of knives that had different blade shapes and different blade styles and different grind contours and give them all a whirl on this so that I could give an accurate representation of what this knife sharpening system can do for you. If I create a custom knife and I'm selling it to somebody, I want them to be able to look at the secondary bevel on that knife and say, wow, this guy can get a knife sharp and it's consistent. So that's the whole reason that I decided to go ahead and bite the bullet and purchase this system rather than freehand grinding, using the paper wheels, or even using like the Tormex or something like that, the whetstones. You know, those stones wear down, they take maintenance. This guy right here, you set it and forget it. You use it, you sharpen a knife, you put it back. When you're ready to sharpen a knife, you pull it out, you sharpen a knife, you put it back. Pretty easy, no maintenance, nothing to think about. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a link to a video right here that you guys should go and watch. It's another knife sharpening video that uses the Lansky and it also shows you how I strop. If you're not gonna spring for a system like this and you wanna just spend, you know, 40, 50 bucks and get yourself on your way to knife sharpening, go ahead and click the card up above to look at the other sharpening video, and hopefully you enjoyed my content, guys. Subscribe to my channel, please, and I'll see you next time.